Recording in progress. This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, now we're just going to find out, why do we have the echo, huh? It just stopped. I'm still hearing a little. Joseph, is it you? Okay, maybe it's taken care of. Okay, if you are on for CE, what we'll do is at the end of the class, okay, why are we getting, is everyone getting the echo? Okay, why?
You are off my
I see a few people. Let me mute some people and see if that's what's doing it. I'm not hearing it now. Okay, maybe we got it. Okay, so CE, if you're looking for CE credit, what we'll do at the end of the class, I'll give you a code word and I will give you the link for the evaluation, and we'll have you go over and fill out the evaluation. We are recording this class, so if you want to go back and watch it later on, I'll also send you the link for that, and you can watch it later. I'm trying, am I thinking am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. Thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Mike Dinsmore. I'm with Provo Canyon Behavioral Hospital. We've enjoyed putting on these little classes and having you join us every month. And I don't know, I hope all of you are learning as much as I'm learning as I get to sit through and listen to all these presentations. We have some exciting presentations coming up. Last time I asked an evaluation, we've got an ethics class that is going to be coming up here, I think maybe the next class. And we're going to do another suicide presentation, and I think the one after that, the first one in March. So I'm excited to hear those ones again and go through that. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to turn the time over to Kayla, and I'm excited to hear from you today, Kayla.
Awesome, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I have to admit that somebody kind of threw me under the bus, so I gratefully took took the throw, and here I am. So my name is Kayla Menengay. I currently am visiting faculty at BYU, and I do clinic work on the side. I have a private practice, but I am in the process of opening a clinic called Grace Therapy and Healing, and that will be up and going, we think, by May 1. So we're excited about that experience, and are looking for a place to work, or if you know someone who is, we would be happy to chat with you. This clinic is interesting in the sense that we are really focusing on systemic work. As an MFT, that's really important to me, and so finding ways that we can systemically help everyone is really at the forefront of that mission. So for me, I am, like I said, a faculty at BYU. I teach in the marriage and family therapy department, and my main focus here has been around mindfulness. Not really, as a visiting faculty, I don't really do research, but as I've sat with students, as I've been a student myself, I actually have found that students learn is really impacted by their ability to be mindful in the things that they're doing. And so I hope today that you'll be able to use this for yourself, but also be able to implement these little tools in the ways that you work every day and with the people that you interact with. As a graduate student, I was crazy stressed, and my told me that he wouldn't have a meeting with me until I exercised and or slept. And I thought, what the heck? I don't know how to do either one of those in my schedule. And what I realized years later is that he was onto something, that there is a mindful experience when we are exercising or moving our body. And that was my first encounter with mindfulness in a way that I didn't even recognize, but I'm super grateful for. So that's how I've kind of stumbled upon this. Even as I have navigated my own life, I have found that my ability to be mindful of the things that are happening around me are really important. So we're going to start today with a little activity. So I want you to pick an object that is close by you. It could be literally anything. So I want you to pretend that you have never seen this object before. And as you look at the object, I want you to then pay careful attention to a few things. The way the object looks, feels. What does your skin do? How does it respond to the manipulation of the object? What does it smell like? If applicable, what does it taste like? And I want you to focus on this object, considering the way it looks, how it feels, how does the object itself feel, and how do you feel when you touch it? And the purpose of this is really to help bring our minds to this one moment right here, looking at the object. To focus on whatever is right in front of you. And how many of you have gone through your day or used this object? What's something different that you noticed about this object right now in this moment that you haven't noticed before? It could be something about the object, or it could be something about yourself. Either one. Couple volunteers.
My object is dustier than I thought.
Okay. Notice a little dust.
I had this from some sand play therapy, but I didn't want to move it because my sand colors get mixed up. So I was like, well, I don't want to pick up my object. That's what I noticed.
Okay. So you notice, I'm going to go with yours just for a second, Sherry. You notice that if you moved it, it would change. Okay. So sometimes we pick up things and kind of move them, and then we're like, oh, wait, I didn't actually want to move that thing, right? But you were present to be able to recognize that you didn't want to move it.
Yes.
Thank you. Somebody else.
I noticed that my object was very peaceful to watch.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a gyroscope and I just set it off and it's very comforting.
Great. So it gives you a feeling of peace or calm as you're watching that. I love that. And so interesting things about mindfulness is that it's not people have this idea that it's supposed to clear your mind, or you're supposed to sit still, or you're supposed to close your eyes. We have these sort of ideas that happen when we think of mindfulness, but mindfulness is really just our ability to bring things to the present. So if we think about mindfulness, I shared just a couple of things about mindfulness. When I think of the word mindfulness right away, I think of these things. What are some associations that you connect to mindfulness?
Bringing myself to the present.
Okay.
It calms my mind down enough for me to think on one subject versus multiple things constantly going on.
Okay, great.
It helps. I mean, in my practice, we do like smelly stickers and silly putty and stuff with the kids. And so if they're being real reactive, it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have a negative association with mindfulness or meditation?
Only when somebody tries to tell me to do it when I'm not in the mood.
Okay. They're like, you really need to meditate. I have some words like, I have some words for you that you can do too. Yeah, okay. So you want to be able to do it when somebody else tells you. Okay. Anybody find it difficult to be mindful or meditate?
Yeah, on Wednesdays during the week, it's busy and I want the weekend.
Yeah, right. We have lots of things that we're responsible for. We have lots of things that we're doing, and sometimes it is hard to just stop and be. And so today we're going to talk about a different way that we can access mindfulness. Okay, so so definitions. Really, what we're looking at is basic things. Some of you have already said this: the ability to kind of bring things to the present or to become aware of them. What we're wanting to do is to give attention. So mindfulness is the ability to have that awareness or give attention and remember something. Another definition of mindfulness is that it's the state of active open attention or a mode of processing information. And so we can I lost all my people. So we can use these definitions to think about mindfulness. The purpose then is to be able to create perspective. Some of you in the chat talked about how it gives you peace, or you felt gratitude for it, or even it gave you a calm state. And so it helps us to feel something different than what we have been feeling. Often mindfulness can help us avoid being self-critical or having judgment when we have difficult emotions that come in. And so when we feel that difficult emotion, mindfulness can actually be a great way for us to have some acceptance and let that be part of us. And the benefits we see are pretty great. We know that mindfulness or meditation, that can be synonymously used sometimes, but it reduces stress. It gives us a level of understanding that's different than what we had, and allows us to cope with some of those hard emotions. It can help us break bad habits. And mindfulness also influences our heart rate. And so I want to talk about this idea of mindfulness being a whole body or a full body experience. Often we associate mindfulness with our brain and our thinking, but mindfulness is actually can be a full body experience. And so I want us to kind of talk about that. And we're going to talk about that in terms of talking about our heart and how our heart contributes to our lives and how it connects us to mindfulness. So a little bit about the heart. What does the heart do?
It keeps us alive.
It keeps us alive. Great.
Oops.
Blood. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. So the heart. not only does it pump blood and keeps us alive, but it also sends emotional and intuitive signals to help us in our life. It gives us some guiding principles and signals to help us be safe. And so it does send us emotional and intuitive signals. The heart also is connected and directs and aligns lots of systems in our body so they can function together. We call it coherence. And it's really just a process of being in balance. And when our bodies are in balance or coherent, then we can see a lot of benefits that come with that. Our heart makes its own decisions. How many of you are like, well, my head says one thing, but my heart says another thing? This is what we're talking about, that our heart really has kind of a mind of its own. And it's not just this mushy, gushy kind of thing, or it's not a mechanism or a system. It's really intelligent and it has a lot of power. When we connect this to some research, what research shows us is that we have a heart brain. Dr. Andrew Armour at a university in Canada talks about how our heart has its very own brain, and it has a nervous system just like any other nervous system we have. It can learn and remember, it can sense and feel things. So we're not just talking about something that pumps and keeps us alive. We're talking about something that is actively living and functioning in a way that gives us life. It integrates and processes information from the heart, the brain, and the body. So our heart brain is actually a whole body experience that we have. So when it senses things, it sends information to the brain translates it so that it can store and process the information. So literally with every heartbeat that we have, it's sending information to the brain. And heart influences that brain activity in a continuous motion. So the information sent from the heart to the brain can have profound effects on our higher brain centers and functioning. Our emotional states are reflected in our heart rhythms as well. And so when we look at heart rhythms in and of itself, the information is sent through the rhythm that happens, and it affects the brain's ability to process the information. So if our heart rate is beating really fast, how well do you think our brain is functioning? Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being supreme functioning. How well is our brain functioning if our heartbeat is beating really fast? Not well, 4s, 3s or 4s. Yeah, it's pretty low, right? It's not shut off, but not being able to process the information or be able to make decisions in the way that we really would like for it to be. So when we have a client in our office, or when we have a screaming child, or when we have a difficult situation that's happening, it's likely that everyone's heartbeat in that scenario is beating pretty quickly. And so it's important for us to be able to know for ourselves how to calm that process, but also then how to help somebody else. So by intentionally altering our emotional state through mindfulness, we can actually have the opportunity to modify whatever input the heart sends to the brain, and then allows higher brain functioning to actually happen. So this leads us to mindfulness. Heart mindfulness is our way of getting balance between systems that are often imbalanced. So our emotions run high, our brain tells our body to kick on our autonomic nervous system, our sympathetic starts to activate, our fight or flight system, and we're off to the races. And all of a sudden, I've lost a lot of ability to make decisions or to think through things or to control my impulses. And the challenge with that is that our emotions work at a higher speed than our thoughts do. So our feelings come in and our brain really has to catch up, but our heart actually interpreted that first. And so our heart felt that. Our heart started to respond and it started to beat to whatever that feeling was that came in. So if emotional energy works faster than our mind, why do we make our mind be the thing that we want to help with our emotions? I think we kind of have this a little bit backwards. So we're going to use our heart just a little bit to help us with that activity, okay? So that we can bring our heart, change our rhythm to change our input, okay? It brings us back into balance. So we're going to do another activity. You're like, oh crap, what? But yes, another activity. So I want you to think of a time that felt stressful to you. A time when you felt big emotions. Did my screen stop sharing? Let me see. I hit a button. Okay. Okay, are we back? Okay, great. So I want you to think of a time when you felt stressful. And you can reflect on the feelings that felt like. Some of you can kind of go back to that place and relive it. I don't really want you to relive it in an intense way, but I want you to imagine what those feelings felt like, and you reflect on the stressful feeling that you had. Okay. Now, I want you can close your eyes if you want to, you don't have to, but I want you to kind of go into your body and focus on your heartbeat. I don't want you to check your neck for your pulse or your wrist for your pulse. We're not looking for a pulse. We're actually just looking for the rhythm of your heartbeat. And as you think about that situation, I want you to just reflect on the way that your heart feels. Shift your focus from the racing thought or the disturbing emotions that you felt. Shift that focus to your heart. And you can kind of pretend that you're breathing through your heartbeat to help kind of focus your energy there. And try to keep your focus there for about 10 seconds or more. And as you focus on the place around your heart, as you focus on breathing through your heart, I want you to recall a positive, fun feeling or time you've had in life and try to re-experience that. And using your intuition, using your common sense and your sincerity, I want you to ask your heart, what would be a more efficient response to the situation? One that could minimize future stress. And not only do I want you to ask the question, but I want you to spend some time listening. Listen into what the heart has to say and answering your question. Then I want you to come back to breathing through the heartbeat. And then you can come back to our conversation. Now, this is when I want some people to participate or share your responses. We'll try to keep the chat going as well. Tell me about your experience moving through this process. We didn't spend a ton of time. If I were doing this with a client, I would maybe spend 20 minutes depending on the client. But I could spend however much time I needed to kind of help them work through the process. But did anyone notice a difference? And if so, what was that difference? What did you notice?
I became much more tired. Slowed down.
Okay, you slowed down. Okay. Your heart didn't know what to answer. Okay. We'll talk about that.
I could feel the pain of the emotion and how uncomfortable it was just to breathe through it.
Okay. Heart rate decreased. Okay. Felt calmer. Shannon, can I ask you a follow-up question? What did you love about that process?
It'll be easier if I just talk rather than type it. It immediately slowed everything down. I think oftentimes when I'm in my head and in my brain, the thoughts are just circling and spinning and going really fast. But as soon as I focused that to my brain, or focused out of my brain and into my heart, it slowed that down, that process down.
Thank you. Jessica, you say your heart felt unbalanced due to your thinking. Do you mind sharing just a little bit more about that with us? No is also okay.
Just wasn't sure what to feel with everything just all over my mind and my brain, my heart at the same time. Just
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that some of you are getting at is that how difficult this really is. And I would say that that's not uncommon. That when we first start this process of listening in, first we feel like we don't have the time to do it. So if you can remember that actually managing your energy is much better than managing your time, then listening in will give you a little bit of perspective and can help you really understand what's going on. So listening in is a really great way to be more efficient and effective. So sometimes we're like, well, I don't really have time to do that. And sometimes we're like, well, we start it and we don't really know, it feels unsure or ambiguous. And so I stop. And some of us might think, well, how to get my mind to calm down long enough for me to be able to even experience something different. And what I would say to you is that this takes practice. And it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of us. And I would be one of those that it doesn't come naturally to me to not use my brain. I just tend to be a thinker. And I've had to learn how to be a feeler. And what's interesting is that I think through my own problems, I feel other emotions, but I don't like to spend time in my own emotions, right? And so I've had to really figure out, how do I sit with me in this process and let my heart tell me some good things, because my heart has a lot of perspective. And the goal then is actually for my heart to bring my body into an alignment so that I can really function. So one of the interesting things here is that when we talk about our heart and our rhythm, one of the interesting things, and a lot of you probably know this, but I had no idea until a couple of years ago when I started to really kind of dive in, is that when our heart rate increases, we've talked about how if our heart rate's beating really fast, we have a really hard time thinking. And that's because our body has shot into fight or flight. Our body says, I either have to fight to live or I have to run to live. And that's really good if I'm being chased by a tiger. I don't want to be dinner. And so I'm really grateful that my body will just say go instead of me having to think about whether or not I'm going to run. I just do it. Except that most of the time, probably not being chased by a tiger. And so my ability to shut my brain, or to turn my sympathetic nervous system off and to turn my parasympathetic nervous system on is really important, because it helps me bring my brain back online so that I can listen in, so that I can think, so that I can problem solve, so I can connect to what's being shared with me internally, and then decide how I'm going to move forward. So many times when our heart rate is beating so fast, we become reactive and we lose choice in our ability to make decisions or to respond in a way that we want to respond. How many of you have like come into a situation where you just all of a sudden did something and you're like, wait, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not really how I wanted to respond. And I don't know what your clientele is or what your scenarios are, but my clients all the time are like, I do things all the time that I don't want to do. And it's because they lose access to that thinking part of their brain. And so lowering our heart rate, fastest way that we can bring our brain back online. Okay. There are lots of things that we can do. I'll kind of move to this next slide. There are lots of things that we can do that can lower our heart rate. So we're going to talk about those. So when we lower our heart rate, it turns our brain back online. So how are some ways that you all recognize that your heart rate decreases? What do you do to lower your heart rate?
Breathe.
Breathe. And with the breathing, it's actually in through the nose and out through the mouth. That's a faster way for us to let our breath work. Okay. Take a longer breath.
We do box breathing, so you like count in 4 and try to blow out 4, but yeah.
Yep. Okay.
It helps me to get a drink of water because it helps me slow down, and usually I'm dehydrated by that point. So if I want to drink the water normally, I have to slow my breathing because otherwise I'm just going to choke on the water.
That's really great. Thanks for sharing that. I think I hadn't considered that, but I think that's a really great activity to do because it does slow down your brain. Yeah, that's great. Sit down or remove yourself from the situation. Okay.
If I close my eyes and put my hand on my heart just to kind of tune
Okay.
back in to my body, it slows me down.
Great. So you go inward, which is a really great thing to do. One of the fastest ways that we can lower our heart rate is through gratitude and appreciation. So if you can take a moment to listen in and feel the feeling of gratitude or appreciation, it's the fastest way for us to slow our heart rate. And then our brain comes back online. So all of these other things are fantastic. Exercising or moving our body. So these practical activities, grounding exercises, we can use our senses to do that. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we smell, taste? What can we touch, right? So using our senses is a good way. There are lots of practices that we can use to slow down our heart rate. But if we can really focus in on the heart, then the heart has more power to bring everything into alignment, okay? So how do we recognize when we might need to do this? What are some psychological signs that you might need to focus inward? How do you know? Another way we could say this is, how do we know we're out of control? Yep,
Loud
feeling
tone
loss of
of voice.
control.
Yeah. I said loud tone of voice.
Okay. Feeling fear. Okay. Headaches. Our brain and our body tell us a lot of things. Yelling at rude drivers, yes. Okay. Can't catch your breath, yeah. So there are some psychological and physiological things that happen that indicate that we might need to do something different. Okay. And so we need to be able to be aware of what our body is telling us. That's part of this full body experience when we are trying to really calm something down. So paying attention to maybe our racing thoughts or the feelings or emotions that we're having, or my heart rate is racing, my hands are sweaty, I can't sit down, maybe I'm fidgety. These will be signs that we could take a second to do a little bit of mindfulness to bring our mind back to the present of the thing that we're really doing. So what's our role in this? Some of you will have a different role than I will, but the first thing you need to be able to do is to do this yourself. So I would highly encourage and recommend you to start, if you haven't already, to do some mindfulness practices to help your own system come into balance so that you can, one, experience it yourself, but also then be part of somebody else's experience in doing this. And then you can lead someone else through these practices. And so where do I start? Deep breaths, controlling things, moving inward, slowing down and listening inward are great places for you to start. And you can use this whenever. So that's the great thing about mindfulness. I don't actually have to be sitting in my room in the right position with my eyes closed where no sound is happening and trying to get my mind to clear. I don't know about any of you, but I cannot do that. But I can be mindful while I walk or even while I'm driving. I can be mindful when I'm just sitting at my desk or when I'm having conversation. So I can actually do a lot of mindfulness while I'm doing my everyday things. And so I would encourage you to start incorporating and noticing times when you are actually using mindfulness in the everyday things that you're doing. If there has to be a perfect space for this, then it's likely that we wouldn't be able to find it. But the great thing about mindfulness is that we can use it anytime. We can use it when we're feeling great. We can use it when we're feeling not great. If we practice it when we're feeling great, then we're likely able to have that be a second nature thing, sort of a muscle memory when we don't feel good, that we can kind of come to this mindfulness, looking into our heart, connecting to that and finding the rhythm and then controlling the rhythm. And so we have a lot of power and space to be able to do that. And help us with our awareness. Somebody in the chat said that gives perspective. Our heart actually has a lot of perspective to share. And so being able to be reflective and understanding in that process, super important. All of you can use this. All of you can share this information. You can do this with anyone. I have a mom who has taught her daughter, she's probably 3, how to, when she starts to get kind of worked up, she says, Mom, I need a breath. And she's just started to do it. And it's because I've been working with my client to do it. And she said, how do I do that when my daughter needs attention? I said, invite her to do it with you. This is a great place for her to actually learn too, that she can just take a breath and it's good for her as well. And so I would encourage you to find ways that you yourself can do it, or where you can invite everyone around you to be a part of it as well. You might get some resistance. Some education is maybe important to have buy-in, but parents can do this. If parents can do it, they can teach their children how to do it. And mindfulness allows us to be able to decide how we want to respond instead of relying on our instincts to react. We want those instincts, but we don't need those instincts all the time. We want to be able to make decisions and have control over the way that our bodies are interpreting and responding to things. So yeah, I'll leave that then with any questions that people have. I think I have a slide here with my information, maybe. Yeah. So I'll open it to some questions before we kind of wrap up. Anyone? Perfect. I shared that well enough so you don't have any questions. Any questions about how you might apply this in your work setting or whatever you're doing?
I do want to make a quote of what you said: manage your energy is better than managing your time.
Mm-hmm.
Is powerful, and I think that a lot of people I work with struggle with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
They just push past to the breaking point where they're just they can't anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. There's a book called The Power of Full Engagement, and that's all about how do we manage our energy and not our time. And it's about mental, physical, spiritual, emotional energy. And if we're managing those energies well, then we don't need time because our time is productive. And I found that mindfulness is a way that I actually can manage my energy better so that my time is more productive.
Oh, sorry, I was on. Can I ask, do you send your clients to certain apps that you really like, or do you ever record yourself doing a meditation or something that they can take home?
Great. I don't record myself. I do like an app called Headspace. It's probably my favorite one. Calm is also a good one, but I found Headspace to be just have a few more options for sleep or for a particular feeling that you might have. They have different courses that you can take. So I prefer Headspace. I have used some things on like on YouTube that have kind of helped me use some guided meditation stuff. I don't do a lot of guided things because I want my clients to learn how to move inward. But we generally have to kind of process through like why it's difficult. And we practice a lot. So yeah, I've kind of taken a lot of things and just adapted them in the way that it kind of fits me. And then I use those things with my clients, but everything is adaptable in my opinion. Yeah. Managing insomnia, that's That's a complicated one. I think there are a couple of things I would say. If the insomnia is about a feeling or about a thought, then I think you can use mindfulness in either fashion, either addressing the emotion or bringing the mind down to a thought. I have some other thoughts about insomnia that aren't necessarily connected to mindfulness, but I've had my clients, if they maybe go to sleep and wake up, that they just get their day started whatever time they go. You don't nap during the day, and then you have a consistent time that you go to bed. Day after day, probably about 4 days in, they generally are able to sleep a little bit better. I also think moving your body is another good way to work with some insomnia. But I think a lot of that is just dependent on some variables with your client. Oh, Insight Timer has a lot of meditations. That's great. There is a book called Heart Math Solution that has a lot of brain and heart intelligence stuff and how they work together. So if you're interested, that's a place where I would start. The book that I mentioned before was called The Power of Full Engagement. Sounds like powerful engagement, but it's actually the power of full engagement. I would highly recommend it. There is a lot of research about how our heart processes emotion. In the Heart Math Solution, it talks about how stress is stress because of the way that we perceive the stress and how it didn't meet our expectation, and so then we have feelings about that. But our heart generally intercepts a feeling before our brain does, and then our brain catches up, processes, and then generally we have feelings about feelings, or we have a thought about the feeling. When we attach meaning or association with whatever feeling that comes in, it generally sticks around. But if we can just show appreciation and compassion for the feeling through a mindfulness activity, then the feeling generally feels appreciated for being noticed and accepted, and doesn't really need much more. It just needs to be seen. Other things in the chat. I'm missing anything? Yeah, listening instead of reacting. That's great. There are a couple of other books that I would highly recommend, particularly if you're working with children or parents who have small children. The Whole Brain Child is a great book. Talks about integrative experiences and how we teach our children how to have integrative experiences. I've actually also used it for parents who haven't had the opportunity to have integrative experiences. So that's a good book for children. Any other questions or comments?
While they're kind of thinking, I'm going to hijack you for a second.
Okay.
I know there's going to be others that are going to be jumping on and needing to get to other places.
Of course. Yep.
So there is the code word for if you're looking for CE. I am linking the Google form. I know everybody doesn't need CE classes in this case, but if you will jump on and do the evaluation, we're trying to determine if the second, third Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday are good for everybody, or if we want to do a different day. So there's a couple of questions there at the end just kind of go through and fill out the evaluation. Like I said, if you don't need the CE, I'm looking for some information, some care, some feedback on better days, and if this is good, or if we should do the second Tuesday and maybe the fourth Thursday for people to help them out. Like I said, I know this year is going to be hard to get your CE credits with nothing. I haven't heard anything live this year. So we just want to make sure we can help everybody out. So I want to thank Kayla. She did. What happened is we kind of were talking to a few people do presentations, and they said, oh, here, talk to my sister and talk to my sister. And then finally someone at BYU said, hey, I've got a coworker who I'm going to throw under the bus. And that's how Kayla was thrown under the bus. So we appreciate her sharing this week, or sharing this time. Oh, the code word is that mind 28 right there in the red.
Thank you.
Mind 28. And I'm sure that's kind of gone up. There's the link again.
Do you email us that link? Like, it won't let me copy and paste.
I will, to guarantee that, if you'll email me, just because a lot of times I don't have your email. Like, I can't even, let me slide this over. Oh, Sherry, like a lot of times there's some people in here, like I'm looking down my list, like there's a Benson M. I'm not sure who that is. There's sometimes you're Pro Martin K, Provo Canyon, Pro My, I don't know who needs it, so I don't have emails necessarily. But yeah, even if you want to, if you can go into the chat, just copy it and then get into whatever, you can email it to yourself. But yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I didn't see it there. Thank you. So you were saying you do these every month?
We have been doing it on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
Okay, this is awesome. Because I'm a clinical director. I have others under me, and this was the first time I learned about this. So I'll spread the word. It's nice. It was great.
It's just getting word out. We have been recording them. So we've been attaching them to YouTube. I am trying to find out what the state requirements on those are. This gets to count as a live class for us this year during the COVID situation, but that is all ending end of the year. So I just need to check with the state, and then we can see if we can do those old ones and get credits for those also if you missed some of the old ones. But the information wise, I mean, we had Greg from Reach for Hope on, and he shared some of his stuff. Yeah, we've had a lot of topics, med management, pharmaceuticals, levels of care. Jennifer has been on a few times. So other questions for Kayla, those that are still on? Finding the old ones on YouTube. When I send out the CE certificates, I'll send a link for the YouTube channel.
Okay, well, thank you for this opportunity. You can reach out to me if you would like. I'm happy to share anything else with you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Appreciate you. It's quiet this time. Normally we've got comments, questions. Is there anyone else needing the link? I'm sure it got kind of pushed up. Oh, what'll happen is you'll fill out the evaluation form. Give me a couple of days and give everyone kind of a couple of days to jump in and do it. And then I will send them out email. Some will jump on it right now. Some may do it tonight if they can't get on it at work because of firewalls. And then I'll have a few that'll be a day or so, but I'll get those out to you. It doesn't take long. There's just, yeah, it's the typical, how'd the presenter do? Was the information useful? And then I've added a few questions just at the end, just trying to find out information, how we can help provide topics. Sometimes I come across a speaker who says, well, what should I talk about? And I'll show them a list of what everyone said they want to hear about. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I've got something on that. So it doesn't take long at all. No questions? Okay, well, I think we're done. Thank you again, Kayla. We'll touch
Yeah,
base
thank you.
with you, and thanks everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah.